we're in, but just, I've been sending them some Fishes, Texas. I got reminded that just worry about what's next. No, not Coach Boone. He's got enough on his plate. Hope everybody's doing good. I'll take any questions you may have.
We were talking to Tucker Kraft a little while ago, and he was talking about that you had him watch some Mark Bavaro stuff. How did that come up?
What'd he say?
I didn't ask him that part of it, but he talked about how he appreciated the history of, apparently Notre Dame played a game with the Giants, so I got to watch some Giants practice, and never really wanted to block a guy like Lawrence Taylor, so you enjoyed it and got something out of it.
Yeah, I just think anytime young guys are interested in the position that they play, of guys that came before them, I think I asked them to Google Russ Francis as well, and guys that maybe Tuck reminded me of, and I think Tuck's going to be a great player, works extremely hard. His game gets better and better every week, and so just gave him a couple guys to maybe look up that maybe give him a little inspiration or something to look at, at the position that he played of guys that came before him. So I try to do it with a lot of guys.
He's like the ultimate old school tight end.
Well, for me, I'm grew up big Giant fan, and Mark was big and physical and could be an end line player, was a good receiver, and I can remember in one Monday night game, I think he carried 6 or 7 players, down the field, and so I just thought he was a good guy for Tuck to look at. Tuck, I think, fashioned himself as being an end line player, but good receiver. He's played special teams well for us, and Bavaro did some of the same things also. So just give him a guy that maybe he could look at to give him a little inspiration.
What's the challenge this week with Vikings?
Well, we in the 4 games I've been a part of with Minnesota, this is a good physical special teams unit. They blocked a punt already this year. They got a punter that can direct the ball and hits big balls. The rookie kicker's playing really well. So it's it'll be a challenge and to take advantage of the ops that we get, and again to protect the punter. There's been a lot of really good rushes going on around the league. Some new things that have been coming to the forefront. Some new formations depending on the distance you have to get a first down. They've had 2 successful fakes a year ago that we got to prepare for, and where they are in the field and how we're going to line up to it. So they're a challenge. They're a challenge because I think they're coached really well. And I think, like the rest of their team, they're a physical bunch that can really run.
I think the field goal operation has been, not just the kicker, but just the whole operation?
Yeah, I think the operation's actually been really good. Snap and hold's been really good. Our times have been really, on point. They work hard at it. And hopefully they'll keep getting better, as well. So we're working with, 2 different kickers throughout the week. We still have Alex with us, which has been a good thing for really all of those guys to keep getting the work. So I think that hasn't been an issue.
Has Alex made strides since he's been here?
He has. He had a good day again today. He had a good day last week, and his awareness of how things work is getting better as he goes. But I think they've done a good job of helping each other, of watching the film together, and trying to get a masters in themselves and things that they do well, and then things that they can correct. I think they've done a good job of helping each other.
I think 10 of the 11 kickoffs Keyshawn's been back for have gone for touchbacks. Does he have less freedom than in years past to take it out just because of the new rule?
Well, I think I put him in a bad spot in Philly, taking that ball out. Back then we just thought we could possibly make a play. It was a bad alignment, and the ball was just really kicked really well. So I don't know when they're going to kick to him. I know that I think Minnesota's covered 3 to this point. I think they've covered 3, and I think they've returned 2 or vice versa. But there hasn't been a lot to him right now. We have to keep him from getting frustrated and getting discouraged. And also, when the ops come, hopefully we can get guys blocked. We're not really sure. We didn't block anybody on the first one in Philly. So, we're not really sure what it's going to look like when we do get our ops. But every time we go out there, we're trying to prepare, to get our blocks done. And hopefully we'll just keep making good decisions on the back end without him getting frustrated.
Rich, in your career, how rare is it to see that pull and shoot get called?
I was really excited to see it called, so that I can say. They've been put out the videos throughout every week, throughout the league about things that go on and emphasis that they're going to make as the season progresses, and that was kind of one of them. I think You saw in the New England game, they got called for leverage on the outside between the tight end and the wing on a field goal rush. I can't remember the last time that was called. I think it's been called twice now in the last 2 weeks. So I think they're paying more attention to some of those details with some of the tricks or the nuances that are going on in some of those critical areas, whether they pull the center out and run a pull and shoot in the A-gap, which happens a lot, or whether they're doing it now, on the tight end and try to pull the tight end out and let the jumper go through. So we get points of emphasis videos all the time about what they're looking at or what they see and what they're going to start calling. So it was a pull and shoot, and I'm glad it was called, obviously.
Rich, do you think, there's a number of teams that have gone with rookie kickers lately, including Vikings and you guys and Rams, last year 49ers. Do you think it's just kind of a progression of some of the older kickers are coming out of the league, or do you think you're just seeing guys who are more talented than what you've seen in the past?
Well, good question. I don't know if I've, thought of it like that. I mean, every year you go through the progression of the draft of who's coming out and where you feel like they fit, in the draft, I guess, kickers. I know last year the 49ers took him early, and they took him in the 3rd round, and he's certainly proven them right. He's a good player. I think some of them are extremely talented, and they're asked to do some different things, kick some bigger kicks in college than they have been in the past because of the talent that they have. But I think you also see, it's hard to stay really, really consistent for a really long time at that position. The margin for error of your contact point is very small, and I know there's some kickers that are really good in our league that have, lately we're seeing them miss some kicks they don't normally miss, and then we're seeing a 65-yard field goal. And so I think it's always going to go up and down. I know they talk about everything from, moving the goalposts and moving the crossbar and all those different things. But you see that the kickers over time have gotten better and better and better. But I still think the margin of error is very small for them to stay consistent for a really long period of time. But I do think because of now the punter is now the holder, and you have a snapper that doesn't play a position, the ability for those guys to get the snap, holding, kick, the consistency of that has allowed guys, I think, also to get better. So, and when those kickers are pretty good players in college and they come into pro football and the hash marks now are closer and they have a much better angle to kick it, I think you see those guys having success early as well due to some of that angle that's been given to them in the NFL.
Do most kickers have a little bit of a fade or a draw on their kicks, or is that not the case?
I'd say it's probably accurate. A lot of those guys play golf. So, sometimes if a miss hit goes right for a righty, a lot of times they'll say they toed it. Their plant foot might be a little far away, and they end up on the end of their toe. And if they cup it, they come back and try to adjust and cup it. That's what gets that pulled, kind of across their body the other way. And that's what I mean by the margin of error of where they hit that contact point for those guys is just so small. So I think you're probably better off asking them, but you see it, and they're always playing the win. That's the other thing that rarely gets taken into consideration. It doesn't look like much sometimes on TV or feel like much when you're on the sideline, but the higher the ball gets in stadiums, the more the wind can affect it. So
The reason I asked was it seems like this guy hits a really straight ball even when he misses. Is that, have you noticed that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Your kicker, Nervison, it just seems like the ball's going pretty straight even on the misses. Is that uncommon, or is that a...
No, I've been around a lot of guys hit straight ball. Mason hit a straight ball, all the time, and Dan Bailey hit a straight ball. So, but again, it's you don't really think much about the ones that they make. It's like, what happened on the one that you missed, right? Did they know right away what they did so they can come back and self-correct quickly? I think that's really the thing of the really good ones, are how quickly can they self-correct after a miss? Or if they make one and it just kind of goes in there, what did they do for that to happen? Did the wind play a factor in that? Was it the contact point? I think the guys that can self-correct quickly are the ones that really know kind of what they're doing about their plant foot, about their line, trusting the line and hitting it. And I think that's one of the best things that Braden does, is that he has a good line, he trusts his line, and he hits the ball, So we're happy where he is as well, and hopefully we just keep getting better.
like you just said, you're happy with him. I mean, the penalty wipes out a miss. It would have been one miss in each of the first 3 games. That was kind of what Anders was going through, right, last
Well,
year?
no, I think if you look early last year, it took a while before Honors missed a kick last year.
16 in a row early on, and
So-
then, but 10 out of the last 12 games, he had one miss, right? So how do you kind of, at what point do you start to say, okay, we need to, I mean, I'm sure you're saying it now, but we need to eliminate the one miss a game, right?
Sure. We need to eliminate all missed tackles and eliminate all interceptions and eliminate all missed blocks and on and on and on and on, right? I've said that before. So we're happy with where he is right now. I think he gets a good line. I think he kicks the ball. We were real excited. He came back last week. I think it was that 48-yarder that he hit, you know. So his response to something negative kind of is what we're looking at as well. So, and I think he's done a good job kicking off for us.
Do you think you were talking with Matt about the lack of returns for Keyshawn? I thought this was supposed to increase the number of returns league-wide, and it doesn't seem to be doing that to a significant degree. Do you think that there are more changes coming to this, maybe the 35-yard line for touchbacks? Because it doesn't seem like it's deterring touchbacks that much.
Yeah, again, I think I said earlier in the year that they're going to, I guess, keep looking at it as the year goes on. I don't know if they'll make changes. I do know there were the most holds that were called in the first 3 weeks were called last week in the NFL on teams that actually returned it. There was one called against them on us, put the ball on the 15-yard line. So I think if you start looking at the drive start average after returns is the 28 or the 29, just, pick your poison, right? If your defense can start on the 30 and can be consistent, then that's pretty good for them. If you feel like, that maybe your group is a little bit better than the group you're playing against and you want to do something with the ball to give them a chance to cover it, I just think every week's going to be different. I do think when the weather changes, I think we'll see changes, especially here. Teams that play outside, teams that play in the weather, I think you'll start to see some changes. But there are teams that are getting better at some of these kickers, putting the ball on the ground and doing some of those funky things with the ball, putting it in the corner and some of those things. So I do think we're going to see a progression of more returns as you get going, as kickers get a little bit better, and as the weather changes. Good. Okay, thank you. Nice, man.
Guys having a good week? Yeah, it's a good week so far. It's Thursday, right? Is today Thursday? It is, yeah. All right, let's roll.
So Kevin O'Connell was telling the people there about your relationship with him. You guys lived like 3 doors apart or something like that down over there?
Yeah, we did in Cleveland. I met Kevin, I think it was my second year in Cleveland he came in. And we had a townhouse like right across the street, and him and his wife Leah and my wife Gina. We hung out a lot, went out to dinner. We really hit it off. I mean, great human being. I mean, I think it was his first year coaching too, to be honest with you, because he had just finished playing, and I think he was doing some TV. And you could just tell right away the way he carried himself. Just a special guy, a man of integrity, first class in everything he does, the way he approaches people. I mean, he's a guy I would have bet early on and said, I'd pick that guy to be a head coach pretty quickly. He kind of has that aura about him. He's smart. We spent a lot of time talking football, offense, defense. And then when we left Cleveland, we went to San Francisco together. So we spent 2 stops together. Our families kind of hung out on vacation and just got to know him really well. He's got a great family. He's a really good football coach, but he's even a better person. So, yeah, I'm a good friend of mine, and you know, we talk often. Obviously, we won't this week, but it's I got a lot of respect for him.
On the football side of things, what are some of the challenges that he presents?
Yeah, one, I think the scheme's really good. You know, they're running the ball really well, and then I think his pass game. It's not just the players. I think it's also the scheme, and then he's got really good players too. I mean, obviously Jefferson, you know, is probably the best wide receiver in the league. If Addison comes back this week, we played against him when I was in college, and I thought early on his rookie year he was going to be special the way he moved around and made plays. I remember that first game at Pitt. We played against him when he was a freshman. I was really impressed with him. Obviously, the running back's a phenomenal player, and from what everybody around here says, is one of the most special human beings ever. Everyone seems to rave about him, so I'm sad I never got a chance to meet him. And then the offensive line, they're really well coached. They're tough. They're gritty. I think their tackles are really good players. They're strong. Both tackles are really good players. They're strong inside. You know, they've really kind of pieced it all together. They're a talented team with a really good scheme, so that they present a challenge. They've been scoring a lot of points.
Philosophically, I mean, I know not everybody plays combination of man zone, no one just does one thing, but are you for, against having a corner on a receiver for the majority of a game? Is that something that you would do or would rather not do?
Yeah, we've done both. I mean, we've done that in some series this year. We've done it in some games, and if it's going to fit in best to the calls that we're trying to call, we definitely. It's definitely a thing that I do believe in, for sure.
Coached against Jefferson, you know, in your career, kind of missed him a little bit when you were in the NFL. Do you have to rely a little bit on other people about how to devise a game plan? Because a lot of game plans have really failed against him, have been really rough.
Yeah, I mean, he's a
what's
great
your
player.
impression?
Say it again. Say that.
What's your impression, and how much, you know, do you have to lean on some other people too?
Well, one, you turn on the tape, and it doesn't take you very long to figure out how good he is. I mean, he's big. He can catch the ball. He's fast. He can run all the routes. He's good when he catches the ball and catch and run. He's got incredible hands. But we've had guys in this building who've played him. DA is coached up against him. RD and those guys have coached up against him. So, yeah, you definitely want to pick other people's brains. And I've talked to other coaches in the league about him. But all you have to do is turn on the tape. I mean, the tape speaks louder than anyone can tell me. So you got to know where he is, and you have to pick and choose times to scheme around him. You can't just scheme around him the whole game. They have other really good players too. I mean, I think that's the difference when they're running the ball really well too. So you just worry about him all game, and then you're going to look down and they're going to beat you up in the run game. And I think that's what they've done such a good job of this year, both coaching and playing. They can do both.
To Rob's question about matching a guy or having a guy travel, does your defense and the things you do allow for that a little more effect? We've been told by other coaches that if you do that with a guy, it messes up all the other things you're trying to do defensively. Is that not really the case, or is that a defense by defense difference?
I mean, you got to ask other coaches, and maybe it doesn't work in some schemes where they just kind of keep their corners on a side. I mean, I've kind of told you guys this a bunch. It's our job to put our best players in position to make plays. So if it's our job to put our best players on their best players, then we need to figure out how to do that. I mean, I'm not just going to walk into a game and say the scheme is just strong enough to stop that great player. I mean, that's just not how I think. I mean, we got to figure out, how to stop their best players each week. And if that means doing something a little bit different, then it's our job to do that.
What quality about Aaron Jones, when you watch the tape, jumps out at you most?
He runs with violence. He's got this burst to him that he just wants to run through people. And he's fast. He can bounce it and hit it. And he's got a great stiff arm. He's an explosive player, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, he's good in the screen game. They empty him out. They release him through the backfield. He's a complete player. And you guys probably know it better than I do because you've been around him for so long, So, like I said, I don't know him like everybody around here knows him. And it kind of sounds like I wish I did know him because he seems like, one of the greatest guys around, and that's awesome. This week we got to do everything we can to to play great defense against them.
When Seattle, for instance, had Earl Thomas, everybody knew it's tough to throw deep on them because he could cover so much ground. Through 3 weeks, McKinney has 3 interceptions. Is there going to be, do you think teams will start to think twice about going deep because of that? Or
Would you
do
think
they
twice if he
continue
was
to
back
chip?
there? Would you think twice if he was back there? I would. I mean, if you put too much air on the ball or you stare somebody down, he's going to go get it. I mean, he almost had another one in that game. I mean, he had 2 he almost had, right? I mean, he's a dynamic player. He sees it so fast, and he reacts so fast. Like, if you take your clicker and you're watching the film, like, the thing I always like to do is I always like to watch that wide copy when you can actually see the quarterback's face, right? And when that quarterback hits his back step, is he going in that direction or is he still trying to hold you off? Like, when you watch X and you freeze it and you, like, watch it in really slow motion, he's breaking before the hand's coming off the ball. Like, that's how well he anticipates stuff. So I would be a little bit worried throwing in the middle of the field if he were there. And then he's got great hands and he can go up and track it. And it's not just ability, because he studies it too now. Like, that guy watches a lot of tape. He's fun back there. So to answer your question, yes.
Speaking of him, he gets a $67 million contract, and with that kind of money, there's these incredible expectations get put on the guy, and I'm sure you watched film with him, but has he exceeded that even to some extent what you thought, what you might be getting compared to what you actually received?
I don't know. That's a tough question to ask. I never try to put expectations on a player, right? No matter how much we pay him or when we pick him. I think he's had a really, really good 3 games. And again, I don't think it's by chance. He's very, very talented, like extremely talented. And then he works really hard at it. I mean, he's constantly texting me questions. We're going back and forth even when we're not here in the building. He's in my office early in the morning wanting to go over the game plan before we even give out the game plan. He's watching extra tape. He's studying it. So, I mean, that's what you get when you're that talented and you work that hard and you get on the field. It's not luck. It's his preparation has met his opportunity, and he's taken off with it. Like I said last week, I'm just really glad he's here because he's another one. He's a great player. He's a great guy too. I mean, what he's done leadership-wise. I mean, you guys, you don't really get to see him as much out there right now. Like, every play matters to him. Like, every single play in practice he cares about, and he wants to be perfect. And no one's going to be perfect in practice or a game, but he strives to do that. And you can see how much it frustrates him when maybe that one play doesn't go right. And it's kind of like us as a coach. Like, it's like, every yard we take personal, every play we take personal, and he's kind of the same way on the field. He works at it.
Jeff, I asked Downard a couple weeks ago, because, those of us that have been here a while saw that Woodson had this kind of gravitational pull, that all these young guys were really drawn to him to learn from him. Do you see, not putting him in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but do you see that same effect with X, with all these young safeties you've got and younger corners? Do you see that same thing happening?
Yeah, I mean, with the safeties in the room, he's got a lot of young guys in there. They'd be crazy not to gravitate to him, And the crazy thing about X is young. Right. I mean, he's 24 years old. So we're talking about a young guy right now too, which is even better. But yeah, I think for sure those young guys are gravitating towards him and the way he teaches them, because he's hard on them too, and not in a negative way. But when he's back there, he wants it all to be right, and it's awesome. It's awesome to watch. It's like we have another coach back there.
Are you getting what you need out of Kenny Clark beyond the box score of these first 3 games?
Yeah, absolutely. Kenny's doing a really good job. I mean, we had a bunch of sacks and a bunch of pressures last week, and you could look at the box score and you could say, wow, he had a great game because he had 2 sacks, and he had a great game because he had 2 sacks, and he had a great game because he had 1 sack. But who made the quarterback step up into that guy with the sack, right? Who flushed the pocket and made him step out to give that guy a sack? So what you see sometimes, the result, but the process is, to me, just as important. Kenny's been great, and he's been really good against the run. And he's another guy, when you turn on the practice film, I mean, he just works so hard. And he is a huge part of why we had 8 sacks last week, and why they rushed for a handful of yards last week, and why we're going to continue to get better and better. So, yeah, I couldn't even tell you his stat line, but he was just as important to those 8 sacks as the guys who got them.
Percentage of sacks when you rush 4 guys is pretty high, it seems like. Are you pretty satisfied, when you do just rush 4, that you're getting to the quarterback?
I was last week. I mean, yeah, if you can rush 4 and you can affect the quarterback, you can play better coverage, right? You have, by math, you have more people out there in coverage, whether it's man or zone. So I think that's always the first thing you look at. Do we have to rush more than 4? Because if we don't, that's great. We get more people in coverage. But I think, again, I think the whole thing that I tried to say last week, like this last game, we did some really good, and we did some stuff where we have to clean up and we have to get better. We're still not consistent enough. We're not. But that's going to take time. So I think what you saw last week is I see the games getting better. I see the rush getting better. I see the rush lanes getting better. I just see our team getting better. And I think you saw that last week with a lot of the 4-man rush. And I think you saw it when we started to pressure them when we could. And I just think you're going to continue to see that with those guys. The other thing that I think really helps, I mean, we're like sending waves of different guys out there. So by the fourth quarter, when the O-line has played every single play and our D-line has each played half of those snaps, they're going. Like, we looked fast at the end of the game. And I think Rebs did a great job of making sure of that, because now you got fast guys in the fourth quarter when they had to throw the ball. And that's why you saw, like, we were coming. So hope that answers that question.
Downside to playing all 4 of your so-called edge guys at the same time, which you've done a few times with, all 4 of those guys?
The downside is the interior guys probably get mad at us. No, there's no downside. We're doing certain things with him to get different bodies and different speed on the field. The only downside is Heavy D and Kenny probably aren't very happy with me when that gets called in. But that's just the competitive nature, right? Ultimately, I told you guys last week, the only thing that's important to me and hopefully our players are to win and for our players to have success.
2 more.
Jeff, you told us from the beginning that you thought this defense was going to fit Wyatt pretty well. Obviously, we saw what he did last week. Where do you think he is in becoming the guy that you thought he would be in the system, and how far has he come so far?
I think he's taken big steps from week 1 to week 3, as I would hope he would with the rest of our defense as they get comfortable. I think you see what he does in the pass game and how effective he is, but I don't know if you quite dive into how good he's been in the run game, right? The TFLs, the movement, the speed, the athleticism, the get-off, the penetration. He makes it hard for the O-line, really hard. And I think the combination of all those different bodies we have in the middle, you got some really big guys and you got some quick guys. He's kind of a combination of both. I'm a big fan of him. He works. He's a fun guy to be around. And I just, I hope, and if I had to bet, you're going to see improvement each week from him.
On Jair's pick 6, he basically told us he knew what they were running based on the formation. It almost looks like he takes a step back after the snap to bait Levis into the throw. How much patience does that require from him so he doesn't jump it and Levis doesn't go there? And did that step back almost kind of bait him into that throw, you think?
I'm not sure, but it was one of the. That was an unbelievable play. I don't care if he knew the play was coming or not. The execution that he had on that play and the jump he had and he read it, and then he caught it and was able to score and then do his meditation at the end. That was an impressive play. And that goes back to the importance of preparation, the importance of film study, the importance in trusting your teaching and your coaching, right? And tying it all together so that one moment happens on the field and you can take your shot. That's awesome. And I thought he played a really good game last week. Again, I think he's another guy who took a step. Hopefully we're going to take another step this week. And I say the same thing. You eventually get mad at me for continuing to say, we have to get better, we have to improve, because I think he can even play better. And I think he's played really well in that last game. And that was a lot of fun to see.
Thank you.
Guys good? All right. Have a good rest of your week. I'm good.
Question for you. So you got a lineman blocking on a run play. And it seems like watching these games, he cuts up inside, it's fine. he goes outside, it's holding. What do you do, what are you teaching these guys to do to not get that holding call?
Yeah, there's a couple things like when you're talking about the run game, some of it's on the running back. You know, when you're blocking and let's say the defensive lineman's outside and then you still bounce it anyways, a lot of times, you know, as you're engaged with the guy and he tries to escape and there's that tug, the play should have been cut inside and that penalty would have never happened had you kept the ball and, you know, read your landmarks the way you should have. So that's one thing. But yeah, anytime when you're engaged and you feel a D lineman trying to escape opposite where you're blocking them, and that happens in protection, you know, when a quarterback scrambles out, stuff like that. Like, that is really difficult for a lineman because you're blocking, he's bull rushing, there's force against you. All of a sudden it changes, and then they see that. It's just an unfortunate thing that happens. So you just have to immediately try and let go when you feel that change of direction in a D lineman and kind of anticipate it.
Or is that?
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard, but it's just stuff you just have to understand. Like when you feel that bang, just to let go, because the ball's probably outside of you. So it's tough.
You know, obviously Rashid's been victimized by a couple of those. How do you view his play here through 3 games?
Inconsistent, up and down, and his play has been good, but like you said, those penalties, you know, those things kill drives, and that's something that we really need to improve on, and not just him. He's not the only one that's gotten penalties, but as an offense, I think that's the biggest thing that we need to focus on is just making sure we're playing with good fundamentals. We're focused on that. That way it will eliminate most of those penalties that kill drives.
Tell the tackles about lining up, they're calling, you
Yeah.
know, guys being back a little bit. Do they get that much of an advantage by, you know, being a couple inches off the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, you're basically, what we coach them up is, obviously, the crown of your helmet has to be in the belt line of the center. So wherever the guard aligns, when he aligns himself up, your inside foot, as a tackle, has to align with the guard's inside foot. Sometimes the guys lose focus and they look at the outside foot of the guard, and that creeps them back a little bit, but that's something, for whatever reason, they're very picky about right now, calling that. So we just have to make sure we're really dialed into that with how we align on the inside foot of the guard.
Are they looking at the feet or are they looking at the helmet?
No, I think they're looking at, you know, just making sure a part of your body is within that plane of the center's belt line. So, yeah, it's just something you really have to focus on.
Scale of 1 to 10, how limited has Jordan been in practice this week?
Yeah, it would be too limiting to put a number on how limited he is. So, yeah.
I'm not asking if this is going to happen, but are the wheels turning in your guys' heads because of how Malik has played to maybe think about ideas to get him involved in sub packages if Jordan does play?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're kind of preparing for both scenarios. So I think, you know, you have your Malik game plan and you have your Jordan game plan, and it's just, and there's a lot of similarities, but then there's some differences too. So, yeah, it's kind of just preparing for both and then seeing what happens on a day-to-day basis.
Go ahead, Paul.
For a defense that blitzes, shows so many looks, what's the impact of that on the run game's perspective, the challenge?
Yeah, they pose a big challenge because a lot of their fronts, there's just so many guys up on the line of scrimmage, and they're very multiple with their personnels, and they can get a lot of different looks from a lot of different personnels, where it's not a very good look or very favorable to run the ball in a lot of situations. So you just have to really be patient with it and just kind of focus on just your mentality, because there's going to be some bad looks and you just got to get what you can out of them. But they pose a problem. They got smart players. They pressure a lot, and they're very talented across the board. So it's going to be a really big challenge for us this week.
You know, Steno, you were an offensive lineman. You blocked your tail off no matter who you were protecting. I get that. But if Jordan is playing, which I know we don't know, But if he is, he's not gonna be at the 100% mobility that he would be if he was fully healthy. So what's the challenge for your guys against a team that leads the league in sacks to make things easier on a guy that's not gonna be as mobile as he normally would be?
Yeah, there are a lot of things you got to take into consideration with that. It's whether you can get the ball out of your hands faster, you know, continue to run the ball well. I think that's going to be a big thing, and kind of take the pressure off him. But there's going to be situations where we're going to have to throw the ball, and you know that's kind of why we're just evaluating the process of his injury and kind of how he looks at practice and stuff to see, can he do those things when he's out there? And that's the biggest thing is, can he run around? Can he make those plays? We don't want to put him out there if he can't. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
I'm sure I'm guilty of oversimplification, but you just did kind of say you've got a Malik game plan and a Jordan game plan. But the stuff that you've uncovered with your Malik game plans, can you carry those now into your Jordan game plans moving forward and make you guys even better because of those tweaks that you made?
Yeah, I mean, they're all things that we've had in our offense. You know, you install it during camp and just talk about it, and then Malik put it to life when we called those plays. So, yeah, credit to him. He did a great job, and you see his athleticism. You just see the plays he can make with his feet and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just one thing. You just got to see how Jordan is running the ball if he's our quarterback this Sunday. So.
Out of the pocket, he's run more than he's thrown it. Is that a safer play for, you know, maybe a quarterback who doesn't have as much experience? You like that, where he's just, hey, I'm not going to force a throw, you know, where I'm under pressure or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. But for him, like, you break out of the pocket, you see an opening, go make a play with your feet. Yeah, instead of, you know, throwing a ball that may be contested or anything like that. So yeah, I would say definitely you like that for any quarterback, just to go make the play with your feet. Some guys, they kind of wait it out and see if they can find a guy downfield. But, you know, if you're talking about just being safe with the ball and keeping the drives alive and things like that, then yeah, scrambling's never a bad deal.
Good throw to Wicks in the corner, the one where he kind of scrambled out to the right, and Wicks was breaking.
Yeah, yeah, he came open on that one. But again, it's one of those things that, like, once you're a quarterback, you scan it, you don't see it, and you make that decision. Just go and, you know, live with the decision.
You know, their defense has been great so far this year, but, you know, thinking back to December 31st, you got the better of them. Are they somehow drastically different than they were when you played them back then?
Yes, I think they added a few guys in the offseason that have really enhanced their defense. And their back end, you know, they're playing really well. When we played them at the end of the year, they were missing some key DBs that, you know, they have some really good guys in the back end right now. But yeah, it's one of those things, like, this defense puts a lot of pressure on you. And the first time we played them, we didn't execute very well, and we didn't make any plays downfield. And you saw what happened. And then the next game, we played better, we executed, we made some plays downfield. You know, so it just comes down to us making those plays when they're presented to us. So that's going to be the big thing this Sunday, is protecting the ball and making those plays.
Put a lot of pressure on your center because of line calls or does it?
Yeah, a lot of pressure on everybody. Center for the communication and all that stuff, running backs in protection, tight ends in protection, just everybody who is involved with all of that stuff. Quarterbacks making the calls too. So it's challenging. It's a good scheme.
You want the guys talking?
Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone has to be on the same page for sure.
Ryan performed this past week with the full workload at right guard.
He had his best game. He really did. It was good to see. He did a really good job.
I know you mentioned that first game against the Vikings. I brought that up to Matt earlier today too. Like, you guys got booed off the field at halftime.
Yeah, it was bad.
I'm just curious what you learned about your guys and maybe your coaching staff too, because when stuff goes that badly, there have probably been teams throughout the league that things have spiraled and not bounced back.
What I learned is we have the right people here in this building to weather adversity. You know, you do that, you have a hard start to a season, you have a bad stretch like we had. There's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of teams that would just fold. And we took it 1 week at a time, didn't flinch, and dug ourselves out of the hole. So I was really proud of that. And again, I've said this before, that was probably the lowest point of the season after that game for all of us, and the way we got ourselves out of it. I was proud of all those guys, coaches and players, for just coming through it.
I know you have to book it from the press box to the locker room, but you definitely heard the booing en route.
Oh yeah, I was booing in my head too. It wasn't good, but yeah, it just comes down, like I said, you got to make the plays when they're there. So that's going to be the big challenge, and these guys are a good defense, so we're gonna have our work cut out for us for sure.
Anything else?
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks, Tom.